Hello, hello, hello. Now, I know I said I wasn't gonna do any more tier lists, but we're back again with another tier list. This time we're ranking characters from the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. The 2012 show was not my first exposure to Ninja Turtles. I think that would be the 90s movies, and I did watch a little bit of the 2003 show, and I knew of the 80s cartoon, but I never actually watched it, I don't think. And of course, you can't forget the 2007 TMNT movie. That one is peak, or at least I think it is. I haven't watched it since 2007. In case it isn't obvious, I've been on a bit of a turtle binge lately, and I've been especially excited to revisit the 2012 series since I think that's the one I watched the most back in my heyday. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a great show with a lot of attention to detail, but I'm not going to do a review of it because I'm lazy. So instead, I'm just gonna rank the characters, which might actually end up taking more effort than just doing a normal review. Now, with these sort of tier lists, there is some bias involved, like obviously the main characters are gonna be higher up and the one off villains are gonna be lower down, but I don't know, we'll see how this goes. Leo McNardo, arguably the most important main protagonist of Ninja Turtles. He's the leader of the bunch, you know him well. He's the most responsible member of the team, and he became leader just because he asked Splinter if he could be leader. And despite his heroism, he can be held back by the fear of his failures. Leo is absolutely the glue that holds the turtles together. When everyone else is arguing and bickering, he'd be the one to calm them down and get them back on track. But he's not perfect either. He still has his moments of anger. I really like his relationship with Karai, where they're enemies but they're both willing to trust each other. And what ends up happening is that Leo is actually the one to backstab her, which only validates her belief that Splinter is the bad guy and just makes her more of an enemy. At one point, they try to make their relationship like a romantic thing, which I really don't like. They technically would be step siblings, and also one of them's an animal. Ah, God, it's a rain dog all over again. If there's anything I can say I dislike about Leonardo, it's that he feels almost too main character. He's just too you know. This isn't really Leo's character as a whole, but there is a moment that kind of rubs me the wrong way, where at the end of season 4, there's like a big final battle where Leo fights Shredder, and he actually kills him. Like, he cuts off Shredder's head, I think. And I do admire the balls of having the main character finish off the bad guy, but if the whole, like, point of that story was that Shredder's obsession with vengeance is what drove him to madness and like ruined his life, having Leo kill Shredder feels kind of like counter to that point. So I don't know. That's just my opinion though. A tier. I considered S, but after much consideration, I think A tier is much more fitting. Something else, this has nothing to do with Leo as a character, but he's the only turtle in the entire show to be recast. All the other ones keep the same voice actor throughout, but he gets recast. And not only does he get recast, it happens like kind of a lot, actually. Apparently, Jason Biggs was too controversial, so they replaced him with someone squeaky clean. Seth Green. Huh. You know, I never knew getting your spinal cord snapped in half would turn you into Chris Griffin. April O'Neil, the classic human member of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Classic yellow wearing human. So, April in this version, she's not a reporter, she's a student. And this, I guess, isn't really an issue with Ninja Turtles because I feel like freaking everything ever that's like about teenage characters always does this. They kind of just ignore like the normal parts of her life, like the going to school or the being at home is you don't really see any of that. You just see like her hanging out with the turtles. Early on, Splinter began training her the same ninjutsu that he taught the turtles, and then by the final season, she's like a fully fledged ninja. Some people say she's annoying, which I never really got. She quits the team because the turtles accidentally mutate her dad, and like, yeah, I'd be mad about that too. Then they gave her these like powers. Apparently, her like ancestor was like a hybrid Krang, and now she has psychic abilities. At one point, she gets an alien crystal that like turns her evil for 2 episodes, and then the crystal breaks. I did not care for the whole powers thing at all. It just made her too overpowered when everyone else has like swords and hockey sticks, and then she's just like making force fields and levitating stuff. It feels very unbalanced and just kind of dumb. Not quite an A, but let's give April a B tier. Little side note, since April's the first human, I love the animation in this show. I think all the mutants look great, all the aliens look great. I really like how the mutagen glows, like it's unlike anything else in the series. It even almost looks kind of like Kirby dots. But I freaking hate the way humans look. They are so fucking ugly. And the second most important human, Casey Jones. I like Casey Jones. He's like the Kevin Levin of Ninja Turtles. He's pretty arrogant and jumps headfirst into danger. And because of his headstrong personality, he becomes frenemies with Raph. And his design is perfect. He's a teenager just like April, and his suit is made out of all this like junk and scrap he just found, and there's dirt all over it. It's a neat detail how he's missing some teeth, like implying he plays hockey so hard or he's like been beat up a lot in the past. I like how the series acknowledges that even though he has like skill and grit, he doesn't have any actual combat training like the rest of the team, so he's usually struggling in fights. As for criticisms with Casey Jones' character, is that I think as the series goes on, the writers just kind of forget he exists. Like he starts appearing less and less. And also, he mentions having a dad and little sister, but I don't think we ever actually like see them on screen. April and Casey are a couple in this series, so I'm gonna slide him into B tier. That way they can be together. With Splinter, there are usually 2 ways to adapt his backstory. Either he's a rat that became a dude, or a dude that became a rat. And I think in most versions, he's a rat that became a dude. In Turtles 2012, however, he's a dude that became a rat. It's not the first version to go the human route, but I think it's done exceptionally well. Call me crazy, but I think the whole rat thing is kind of stupid. Like, I get that it's Ninja Turtles, and the whole point is that it's meant to be as dumb and ridiculous as possible, but, like, come on. You expect me to believe that some plague carrying rodent just watched a dude do ninjutsu and then figured it all out himself? Fuck you. And that's one of the less dumb explanations. But more importantly, I think making Splinter a human makes his character so much better. Throughout the series, he struggles with his humanity and his fear of becoming a mindless beast. He once rejected a cure for his mutation, seeing it as not important enough. But the real icing on the cake is his rivalry with Shredder. In this version, they're adoptive brothers from enemy clans. But the real reason they hated each other is because they both loved the same woman, Tang Shen. In fact, Shredder would even kidnap Splinter's daughter and raise her as Karai. And later on, he has to win back her trust. And while talking about his kids, I absolutely love Splinter's relationship with the turtles. But you know what I don't love? The amount of times he dies. He has like 8 different fake out deaths throughout the series, and it's like, I mean, I guess it's meant to like prepare the audience for his eventual actual death, but like they just overdo that too damn often. Splinter, I'm giving him a solid A tier. He's pretty good. I heard you mention rats. Are you talking about me? Shut up, Ratwurst! Get back in the basement! Donatello. When I first started the series, I was initially scared of Donatello because I thought he was gonna be like a really annoying, just stereotypical, like, according to my calculations type of nerd. That's what he is in the 80s show. He just spouts on and on about dumbass exposition. But these fears quickly went away, as I found myself really liking Donnie. I even considered him like my favorite turtle for a very brief period. His struggles felt real and compelling, and it was all held up by Rob Paulsen's amazing voice acting. And then we have It. And if you know anything about Turtles 2012, you're probably familiar with it. And it is, of course, Donnie X April. People act like this is the coming of the fucking Antichrist. What I think happens is the writers were setting it up, and then they were like, hold on, that's bestiality, and bestiality is gross, unless it's incest bestiality, in which case it's perfectly fine. So they tried to steer away from it. I think April initially had feelings for Donnie, but felt she had to let them go. And Donnie, instead of doing the same thing and moving on, he just kind of doubles down on his obsessive behavior, which just makes him really unlikable in the later seasons. C tier. Sorry, I know it's harsh for one of the main four turtles, and again, he was my favorite at first, but they just really fudged him in the later seasons. God, only 5 minutes in, and already we got a bunch of weird turtle interspecies shit going on. Beep Bop and Rocksteady. I fucking hate Beep Bop and Rocksteady, like every iteration of them. But the 2012 versions are a rare exception. They work perfectly fine as Shredder's errand boys, but are surprisingly likable as a pair. And their voices fit them very well, being voiced by JB Smoove and Fred the guy that does the Hulk. Rocksteady, aka Ivan Starenko, is a big, tough Russian man, while Bebop, aka Anton Zek, is a supercriminal that uses advanced technology to commit crimes. Also, he acts like Michael Jackson for some reason. Not like the weird parts of Michael Jackson, just mostly the dancing. They were both introduced a season prior to being mutated, which helps making their inclusion feel more organic. And by the end of the series, they actually get a redemption arc and become good guys. Good for them. Bebop and Rocksteady,
Bebop and Rocksteady,
you are C tier. The Shredder. I already went over Shredder's backstory in the Splinter section, but just as a refresher, part of the reason he betrayed the Hamato clan wasn't just the love triangle with Splinter, but also because his true clan was the Foot Clan. There was a time travel episode where we see Shredder's origin, but I don't know, the time travel thing is kind of cliche. I would have rathered an entire episode just set in the past about him turning evil, so we could actually see more of the build-up. Shredder's primary goal throughout the series is kill Splinter, but he actually does care about Karai, to some extent. I mean, yeah, he tortured and brainwashed her with those worm parasite things, but he also let the entire planet Earth get destroyed by aliens because he thought she was dead and didn't want to live without her. So, Father of the Year. Whole ass alien invasions could be happening right outside his window, and Shredder would just be like, I don't care, bring me the goddamn Rat Man. Shredder almost feels more like a Splinter villain as opposed to a Turtles villain. Like, he only fights them, like, maybe 3 times in the entire show. In the second to last season, he mutates into the Super Shredder. And I like how Super Shredder isn't just some scary final boss for the sake of having a final boss. There actually is some significance to him. Super Shredder represents the price you pay for revenge. Unlike Splinter, he has no humanity. A tier. Amazing voice, amazing design, amazing story, amazing everything. Tiger Claw. So, bit of a hot take. I don't really love Tiger Claw. He was introduced during a two-part episode, The Manhattan Project, and it was a pretty big deal. And at the end of the episode, he gets eaten by like an alien worm, and then the worm gets sent to another dimension, so seemingly he's dead. Yet a few episodes later, he just pops back in like, oh hey, I escaped the worm's stomach and then traveled across a bunch of dimensions and now I'm here again. And it's like, it kind of makes him feel less special that they brought him back after killing him off. Sometimes he uses swords, but he also has a lot of really advanced weaponry. And I know that Bebop has his like cloaking device and he can like fly technically, but Tiger Claw has like a freeze ray and a jetpack, which feels just kind of goofy. And I get that the ray gun thing is mainly like a censorship thing because you probably can't give him an actual gun, but like still, just give him just the swords and nothing else. Unlike the rest of Shredder's henchmen, Tiger Claw was mutated as a kid, which means he lived his entire life as a mutant. It's not all that important aside from one, like, special moment, but it is still pretty interesting. In the final season, Tiger Claw succeeds Shredder as the leader of the Foot Clan, which I think is actually a pretty fitting position for him. But then they throw in this really weird, dumb Satanist cult leader gimmick that was completely unnecessary. C tier. I honestly think he's kind of overrated, but I still like him. The Krang, not Krang Prime, their leader, specifically the minions. You could argue this doesn't, like, count as a character, but whatever. If you compare the Krang to, say, the DNA aliens from Ben 10 or the Shatari from Avengers, they have a bit more personality. The way that they talk to each other is very unique, and it's even, like, made fun of occasionally. Like I said before, their motivation kind of falls flat because, like, they're kidnapping humans and mutating them. Well, why? So they can have a bunch of miners to mine minerals. Okay, but why? Maybe because they're scared of the Triceratons or something. Like, it's never really explained, and the Krang don't really have a proper defeat either. But the longer the series goes on, the more they just kind of become cannon fodder. So at one point, you kind of don't really care about seeing them get defeated because you're just kind of fed up with them at that point. Another thing is that Krang are technically slaves. Just like the DNA aliens from Ben 10, they're actually under mind control. Their real species is called Utrom. Krang Prime is like the version that's controlling all of them. And it's never really, like, addressed. Like, it's confirmed, it's canon, but they don't really, like, do anything with that. They're just like, oh, they're slaves, let's continue beating them up. C tier. Mikey Langelo. Going into this, I thought Mikey would be, like, really annoying. I thought he'd be the most unbearable thing in the universe, but actually, no, I ended up really liking him. But he's actually really funny. It's less him that I like and more moments that are, like, centered around him, I think land. And he's also surprisingly really adorable a lot of the times. I like his compassion shown towards gentle giants like Leatherhead and Frankenstein, yes, the actual Frankenstein. Greg Sipes is perfect casting. I can't picture Mikey with any other voice. No one matches that same, just fun energy that he has. And honestly, I think this version of Mikey is simultaneously funnier and not as annoying as Beast Boy. The brothers sometimes see him as a screw up, but the show itself never treats him as a screw up. He's very capable and very much the heart of the team. B tier, a really great character. Krang Prime, leader of the Krang. Krang Prime is really disappointing as an antagonist. He just kind of shows up and then disappears at random, and when he's not around, they never really address why. His motivation is never explained. He wants to mutate all these other worlds and then use the people as slaves to mine for minerals, but, like, why though? Something Triceratons. Then in, was it season 3, I think, he gets, like, blown up and killed anticlimactically. But I feel like I'm not even that upset at that because I already didn't really give a crap about him. D for disappointing. Karai. It feels like I already covered her because I already brought her up like 8 times already because her backstory is so intertwined with literally everybody else's. So to recap, Splinter's biological daughter, Shredder's adopted daughter. Okay, got it. I love the arc of her hating Splinter, then being conflicted about her two families, and then ultimately choosing to side against Shredder. And throughout this series, pretty much every time she gets a redemption arc, she goes back to being bad. Because first it's like, oh, she's good now. Oh, well, now Leo betrayed her. And she's good again. Now she's a snake. Well, now the snake is good. Now the snake's under mind control. At the end of the series, she becomes the leader of the Foot Clan, or like a clan, and becomes like the biggest crime boss in all of New York City. And the turtles are just fine with this. They're just like, sure, you'll be a good crime boss. And it's just kind of interesting in a way because it's like, even though she's technically on the good guy's side, she was still raised by a Shredder who's an assassin. So she's still like, has the mindset of doing villainous things. And I feel like in universe, the turtles probably shouldn't be fine with her having her own, like, underground criminal operations, but like they are fine with it anyway. And I'm fine with them being fine with it because just maybe like from an external view, the creators of the show just didn't want them to still be fighting her after like 10 seasons, 5 seasons. So it's like, I guess that makes sense. Karai is the only mutant in the show that's able to switch back to her human form and she can go back and forth. And that's really unique and really interesting, but it's not really fleshed out a whole lot. It's never explained how that's possible in the first place, nor do we see any challenges with her learning this power. B tier, a strong character and really the focal point of the series. Chuck Norris, I mean Chris Bradford. Chris Bradford is kind of interesting because there's like a lot of Chris Bradfords. There's Chris Bradford, there's cartoon Chris Bradford, there's Dog Pound, and then there's Razar. Here's the thing: of those four, I like three of them. I do not like Razar. I like Dog Pound's design. It reminds me a lot of Doomsday, and I like how one arm is bigger than the other. He's more of a heavy kind of opponent, which is a good contrast with Fish Face, who's more slicey, stabby. I know it's a pretty hot take to not like Razar. I just think the name Razar is so dumb, and the way he becomes Razar isn't very interesting either. He just gets dunked in mutagen a second time. And yeah, his design is badass as hell, and it looks way cooler than Dog Pound. I mean, it looks like fucking SCP-1471. I still just kind of prefer the contrast between Dog Pound and Fish Face more. I used to find that skeleton dog scary, and every time I look it up, I just get blasted by furry porn. And one last thing is that Razar is the first character to die and then be resurrected, and I don't like resurrections. D tier, sorry to any Bradford fans out there. I'm Stockman. That's me. I'm Stockman. Can't they see? Stockman is like an insecure mad scientist. He's pretty pathetic, especially earlier on. And he builds all sorts of robots and death traps and big mech suits and stuff. Fun little fact about the Mousers, they've had the exact same design in every iteration. Can't improve what's already perfect. Stockman gets kidnapped by Shredder and becomes his lackey to help decode all the Krang technology, and somewhere down the line he's accidentally mutated, becoming Stockman Fly. I like Stockman Fly, and I like the whole idea of him starting out like this pathetic wimp, and then he mutates and becomes this horrific beast and starts to fight back. But then it's kind of weird because even as a monster, he's still kind of like a weak piss baby. Like he still wants to serve Shredder, and even after he's cured, he's like disappointed to be human again. Even though he could have a more fleshed out motivation, he usually just kind of hangs out in Shredder's lab and does little experiments off screen. D tier should have been used more and should have been used better. Raphael, the angry red turtle. Now, Raph is hands down my favorite member of the TMNT, in this version at least. This version of Raph is voiced by Sean Astin, which in my opinion is really surprising. Samwise Gamgee as the angriest Ninja Turtle, it shouldn't work as well as it does. He has severe anger issues and can get set off by the smallest thing, but that doesn't mean he's always angry all the time. And really, Raphael feels the most like an actual teenager. He gets into arguments with his brothers a lot, but that doesn't mean he doesn't care about them. He just has trouble showing his affection. And his tough guy persona is subverted by both his fear of small cockroaches and his love for his pets, Spike and Chompy. S tier. Raphael is the best character in the entire show. His focus episodes are some of my favorites. The Rat King. So, does the Rat King have a cool design? Yes. Does Jeffrey Combs absolutely crush it with the voice acting? Yes. But do I like the Rat King? Sorta. Rat King is the scarecrow of Ninja Turtles. Yeah, he looks really cool, but there's only like one thing he does, and that's control rats. Every episode with him is gonna play out kinda just the same. Rat King is always pit against Splinter because of his ability to control rats, And by allowing the Rat King to control him, it is sort of like Splinter succumbing to his animalistic side. So by fighting back against it, it is like him showing that no, I'm not an animal, I am a human. And that's all really great character development, but for Splinter, like none of that really has anything to do with the Rat King. Like, why is he so obsessed with Splinter? Because he's a rat and he likes rats, and that's about the end of it. D tier, and while I'm at it, let's put Spider Bite, Snakeweed, and the Dream Beavers in E tier. None of them are really bad, they're just kind of the one off bad guys. I don't like that guy. He's scary. I can be way scarier if you don't get back in the basement and keep animating my stop motions. But I haven't seen sunlight in 3 days. I don't care. Get back in there. Renette. So, Renette is a time traveling, I want to say, witch from the future. Cool powers, kind of annoying personality. So remember like Ninja Turtles, the movie 3 from like the 90s, the one where they time travel and there's like the staff thing. So yeah, she has that. It's the same staff. I forgot what it's called. The Sands of Time, is that what it was? But yeah, she has like the staff, the most powerful weapon in all the universe, and she's just constantly dropping it and tripping over it and like fucking clumsy Smurf over here. She's voiced by Ashley Johnson, so there's some charm to her, and she is responsible for most time travel episodes, not all of them. And of course, if it's a time travel episode, it's automatically good. But at the same time, I wouldn't really say she's ever like the standout part of any of those episodes. C tier. Kirby O'Neill, aka April's dad. Initially, I really liked Kirby. I thought he was a good dad and a good character, but as the series goes on, he starts to become more like aggressive and paranoid, and that's not for no good reason. He was kidnapped by the Krang and tortured by them and experimented on. He was mutated twice. I like how this series has lasting consequences, but the effects of his trauma are never really taken too seriously or explored. And like, it is a kid show, I get it. They're not going to do a whole 20-minute episode about like an old man's PTSD, but for most of the series, he just feels kind of like a damsel in distress. He's the one who's always getting into trouble, and then the turtles have to rescue him. If he's not getting mutated, he's getting kidnapped, and if he's not getting kidnapped, it's something else. D tier, because he's always the damsel in distress. Zever slash Fish Face. So whenever Fish Face was made, they wanted his design to utilize the 3D animation as much as possible. That's why they gave him like the scaly skin and the sharp teeth, as well as the mechanical legs. His design is one of my favorites in the entire series. And I like how his mutation was almost a handicap. Not being able to breathe air or stand on land actually made him weaker and made him struggle. It wasn't until Stockman gave him the robot legs he was able to fight again. And his backstory is pretty interesting too. He tried to steal from Shredder but then got caught. When Shredder saw the potential in him, he recruited him as part of his gang. He is one of my favorite antagonists, but unfortunately, like a lot of the characters, his relevancy decreases with each season. C tier. Fugitoid. So the Fugitoid is actually one of the earliest characters in the Ninja Turtles mythos. He's an alien scientist who died and had his brain put into a robot body. He has an amazing design. He's got all these lanky robot body parts. The way he moves is really interesting. And then his facial expressions are all really fun. And then I like how his powers, I don't really know if you could call it powers, but like he can like open his arms and have a bunch of like big laser cannons and stuff. That's all really cool. He has a small but still very interesting character arc about not wanting to lose his humanity and succumb to the machine parts of his body. He is voiced by David Tennant of Doctor Who fame, a nice homage to the sci-fi genre this character borrows so much from. Overall, I really like how nice and friendly he is, but a part of me always kind of suspected something about him. I guess because he's British and a robot, those two things tend to be evil. And no, he's actually not evil, but he is still hiding a dark secret from the rest of the group.
B tier. I really love the Fugitoid, but the ending to his story is really confusing and vague.
Lord Dreg, take one look at him. Do you think he's a bad guy? Yes, he is. So he appeared during the space arc, and he was like kind of the main bad guy of that story. I mean, it was really the Triceratons, but I actually ended up liking Lord Dreg more than the Triceratons. I feel like he was more unique and interesting. His design is one of my favorites. It looks so biological. Parts of him are like see through and you can see his bones underneath. It looks more like how an actual alien creature would look. Dreg is probably one of the most generic villains in the entire series. He's a big, bad alien conqueror who wants to kill everybody and rule the whole universe. Now, if you, like me, are fine with something like that, then, that's all well and good. But I could see other people finding him kind of boring. But I have a complaint with Dreg, a pretty big one. Every single episode he dies and then just like comes back the next one. He's always getting crushed or blown up or eaten. He gets eaten twice, but he keeps coming back over and over again, and it gets really frustrating because then every time you think he's gone, he just shows up again. And you might say, "Oh, well, that's the point, right?" Well, no. Sometimes when he dies, we're shown that he's not really dead and he's gonna come back. But other times he's like very certainly dead and then still comes back anyway. And it gets so frustrating. Like, what's the word I'm thinking? Diminishing. That's it.
D tier. I like him more than the Triceratons, and he was fun at first, but oh my god, it just got so tiring.
Timothy, aka Pulverizer, aka Mutagen Man. The tale of Timothy is probably the most horrific thing in this entire show. Sometimes when watching Ninja Turtles, I think to myself, it looks kind of cool to be a mutant. I wonder what type of animal I'd become if I poured mutagen goop all over myself. But then, every time I think that, I remember the old tale of Timothy, and I think, maybe I shouldn't go pouring alien cow titty milk all over myself. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this series made it canon that the mutagen is actually worm milk. Insert if I had a nickel joke here. Timothy, all he wanted was to be a hero. He wanted to be just like his idols, the Turtles. So he joined the Foot Clan, believing them to be enemies of Krang, and then volunteered to be experimented on with mutagen. And he was so excited to finally get his cool mutagen power. Instead, he became this thing, this monstrosity. He destroyed his mind and body, thinking it would be a good idea to play with dangerous interdimensional chemicals. I didn't even like Timothy. I thought he was annoying, but still, he didn't deserve to get turned into a sentient pile of organs. Oh, and he never gets turned back. Donnie invents a cure and everything, but just forgets to use it on him, so fuck you, Timothy.
D tier. You know, now that I think about it, Donnie probably didn't cure him because, like, he literally couldn't. I mean, look at him. He's like a sack of organs. How do you come back from that? He's pretty much fucking dead.
Dr. Rockwell. So he was a scientist originally. I don't think we ever actually see what he looked like pre mutation, but he was old lab partners with Victor Falco before he developed his weird rat fetish thing. But then he got turned into a big monkey man. After being experimented on further by the Krang, he would develop psychic as well as telekinetic powers, even getting a special helmet to control his abilities. Him and Donnie are frenemies, often competing for who's the best science guy. He doesn't really get the most screen time, and even when he does, it's usually just him getting the crap kicked out of him. And I really don't like when his eyeballs do whatever this is.
D tier. He has like two cool scenes.
Slash, formerly Spike. I'd say he's almost like an evil Ninja Turtle. He was a pet of Raph's who was accidentally exposed to mutagen and then became this giant hulking beast. So pretty much almost immediately after mutating, he basically says to himself, "You know what? The Ninja Turtles are pretty ineffective against crime. I'm gonna squad wipe them." Eventually, however, he would start to like soften up and then become more of a good guy. He even forms the Mighty Mutanimals alongside Kurtzman. But I much prefer Slash as a villain. I feel like he's just so much more compelling that way. Honestly, I think he could have even joined Shredder's gang at some point. Now, that's not to say he can never get a redemption arc. You could still do that eventually. I just feel like his redemption in this show never comes organically. Like during what episode was it? The one where like the Krang invade. He's like really concerned with like saving humanity and helping the humans and all that. But like, I thought he hated humans. Like, why does he suddenly care about them so much?
C tier. He is good as a hero, but I think he works much better as a villain.
Leatherhead. Now that is how you do a gentle giant. So Leatherhead was a crocodile, or maybe he was an alligator. I don't freaking know. I'm so goddamn tired of not knowing which is which. But anyway, he was something. He was some kind of aquatic big lizard thing. And then he got kidnapped by the Krang and was not only mutated, but like actually experimented on and tortured. He would develop a form of like PTSD almost, where the slightest thing, especially like any mentions of the Krang, could like just set him off and he goes into this rage mode and he starts just rampaging and destroying everything. We watch him go from being this rage monster that just wants to be left alone to a big scaly teddy bear. At one point, he gets banished to Dimension X, and that's where he stays for a big chunk of the series before making his big triumphant comeback. But I feel like after making his comeback, he doesn't really do as much. I kind of wish he maybe stayed gone, or maybe he would come back having faced his fears and then makes a big triumphant sacrifice and then dies. I feel like that would have been a more proper send off. I'm not really saying I wanted him to die or I would have preferred him to die because that would have been sad. I'm just saying I think they could have still done it and it would have been really good.
B tier. One of the best side characters, but I really think he should have stayed dead.
Ice Cream Kitty. So, Ice Cream Kitty is kind of horrifying. It's a cat that ate ice cream that had some mutants built on it and then became made of ice cream. I feel like people underestimate the importance of Ice Cream Kitty, and that's like really not a joke. The Turtles are a family, not a team. They're not a bunch of serious, straight faced heroes that get the job done. They bicker, they tease, they hang out, they joke. They're a family, and families have pets. And on a side note, if you dropped her on a sidewalk, would she just disintegrate? And also, how long would that take?
C tier. C for Kitty.
Jack Kurtzman. You know, I bet he's working on a unified theory, and if he makes it through tonight, everybody's gonna hear him out. This show does something I really hate with Kurtzman. So the last time he's like brought up, he doesn't die. We don't know if he's dead, but he's in some situation that he probably didn't get out of, and it's never really explained whether or not he got out of it, but it's kind of obvious he probably didn't, but at the same time it's not really confirmed, so he could have. So it's like he's not dead, he's not confirmed to be dead. What, like, that's probably what happened, but maybe it's not. Like, I don't know, I find that annoying. Just like freaking tell us, is he alive or not? Also, he like fucked an alien lizard girl or something. It's never brought up again or explained. Like who was that? When did that occur?
C tier. He's actually my favorite human. You will never meet another person on the entire planet who's as big of a Jack Kurtzman fan as I am. I am pro Kurtzman.
Tangshin. You know, again, I feel like I kind of already did cover her, where she's the mom of Karai, and there's the whole love triangle with Splinter and Shredder. There's a conflict between her and Yoshi where she's like, dude, why are you still doing ninja stuff? It's the 21st century. Ninjas have been extinct for like, a while now. She briefly thinks, like, well, maybe Saki was the better choice. Maybe I should have gone with him instead. And I like the idea that she actually is unsure of Yoshi, and, like, deep down, maybe she actually does prefer Saki instead. I like that she makes a more flawed decision, and it does almost complicate her relationship with Splinter, where you wonder if he found out that she actually liked Saki more, would that, like, how would that change things? Or maybe she didn't like him more. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But I don't know. I feel like she's just the flashback dead character, so there's just not really a whole lot to work with.
D tier, mandatory dead parent slash love interest.
80s Turtles. I'm listing them all as one character because I'm sure as hell I'm not psychoanalyzing each one. There is too much to even get into here. There's a lot of baggage regarding their portrayal and the whole interdimensional universe lore, how this even works. I'm just not even going to touch any of that. I will in a future video. But for now, I'm just going to talk about their designs. They're ugly. I hate them. I want them to die. They have these, like, fucking giant eyes. Their hands and feet look all weird. They're so wet and slimy. Their legs look too muscular. Like, the main universe turtles look fine in both the 3D and 2D art styles, and I think the 80s turtles look good in 2D, but they just look so wrong in 3D.
D tier, did somebody say turtles forever?
Don Vizioso. It's nice to have some human villains in the mix, someone more grounded and realistic. And his whole angle is that he hates mutants. And, like, they say a few times that, like, Shredder hates mutants, but no, he just hates Splinter. Him being a mutant doesn't really have anything to do with it. Don just actually just hates mutants with a burning passion. He has, like, a sign outside his restaurant that says, like, we don't serve mutants or something like that. Even though, like, mutants are still cryptids in New York, like that. I don't even know why you need a sign like that. I feel like most places wouldn't serve mutants. There aren't even like any places that would serve mutants. But his entire personality just kind of boils down to ippity boppity boo. It's me. I'm an Italian. I like my spaghetti with the meatballs. I'm a mud boss. I'm a gangster. I'm an Italian. I'm a Tony Soprano. I'm a Super Mario. I'm an Italian pizza salami. I'm an Italian.
Gabagool.
Shinigami, which roughly translates to God of Death. So we're off to a pretty strong start. Shinny is an old friend of Karai who just kinda shows up out of nowhere in the second to last season. Apparently, she's been in Tokyo the whole time, and that's why we've never seen her before. Also, I think she's supposed to be magic, because she can turn to like a cloud of bats, and it's never really explained how. She does have like a hypnosis thing, so maybe she's not. Maybe she just is magic, but also has hypnosis. Now, I think she has a really great personality and works really well with the rest of the cast, but she doesn't really do anything all that important. Shinny and Karai are close. Like, like very close. And it almost felt like they were teasing some, like, origin story between the two. Like, how exactly did they meet? Why are they such close allies? Well, we don't know, because we never saw it. Aside from the implied magic, her whole gist is that she has a past with Karai, but it's not explored as much as I would have liked to seen, so really it just feels like she's there to be there.
D tier. If they gave solo episodes to the side characters, I could see her being like a supporting character in a Karai episode. And then they could flesh out their relationship more.
Armagon. Armagon is yet another alien antagonist, this time voiced by Ron Perlman. Even though I like Lord Dreg more than the Triceratons, I think I actually like Armagon more than Lord Dreg. I feel like he's less generic villain and more has an actual personality. But my big complaint with him, believe it or not, is actually his design. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great design, but he just doesn't really look alien enough. He looks like a mutated shark from Earth, and his suit doesn't really give off the vibe of a spacesuit either. The suit clamps over his head and turns into pretty much a giant robot shark, and he's able to swim around the vacuum of space like how he would the ocean, which is actually kind of terrifying.
E tier. I wanted to like him.
Cavaxis is not a demon from hell because that's too inappropriate for Nickelodeon's Christian audience. No, no, he's a demo dragon from the underworld. I will admit, there is something kind of funny about the Ninja Turtles just straight up fighting Satan, and Cavaxis is voiced by Mark Hamill, so he's very enjoyable on screen. But here's the problem: Cavaxis can resurrect people, and I don't like resurrections. So he ends up resurrecting like a bunch of previously deceased characters, mostly some bad guys, but even like the way he brings them back, it's not very consistent. Because Bradford he can bring back just by having his body, but for Shredder he needs to like collect a bunch of shit to like restore him, and it just it's not consistent at all.
D tier. I was thinking about putting him lower because he resurrects a bunch of dead characters, and you know how I am about that. But I don't know. Mark Hamill he always steals the show with every role he has. So, D tier.
Neutralizer. Neutralizer is actually the first alien villain introduced in the series, and I think it's done really well. I like how they introduce him as an individual character and then in later seasons flesh out his species. His design is also very unique and specifically alien. Not just the patterns on his body, but the high-tech weaponry that he uses is very otherworldly. Apparently, he was actually an OC drawn by one of the producers when they were a kid, and he's meant to be like a giant homage to the Punisher having lots of weaponry. Even the scales on his chest are meant to resemble the Punisher's skull. And this took me way longer to realize than I'll admit, but his name is actually a pun. Neutralize and newt like a lizard. That's stupid.
C tier. The first and best alien villain. Not if you count the Krang.
The Triceratons. I'm listing them all as one because there's like 20 of them. The Triceratons are a race of big, bad, scary, buff, alien dinosaur men that want to take over the entire universe. They're some of the oldest antagonists in the TMNT series, and also some of the most deadly. Speaking on their designs, they do look a lot like Earth mutants. They could pass as Earth mutants. But the fact that they're Triceratops, extinct dinosaurs, it does kind of subtly hint that they're not from this planet. There probably could be some turtle story where mutagen spills on dinosaur bones. It's like, oh no, it's turning into a real dinosaur or something. But to my knowledge, that hasn't happened, so the Triceratons still feel unique. The Triceratons are very big and powerful. They're strong and invulnerable. Just one feels like enough to not only kill all the Ninja Turtles, but even all the Mighty Mutanimals. But I don't really like the Triceratons a whole lot. They're so powerful and scary and evil that they just become kind of boring. They're nowhere near as unique or fun as the Krang or Lord Dreg. Some of my favorite Triceratons include Zeno, a giant gladiator who actually gets a redemption arc, and Zog, a scout who believes Raph is his leader as a side effect of delirium from asphyxiation.
E tier. A bunch of one-trick ponies. Or one-trick Triceratops. Oh, but tri means three. Whatever. It doesn't fucking matter.
Muckman. Muckman was a garbage man that got exposed to some mutagen and then, of course, fused with all the garbage, becoming a Muckman. His eyeball comes to life and speaks as his consciousness. The idea of Muckman is that the public witnessed him doing like one good deed and then they became obsessed with him. They didn't really like him because he was a hero, they just liked to point and laugh at him. It's a struggle that hits kind of home for me, and this episode has a lot of sentimental value because it's actually the last episode of Ninja Turtles I saw before losing access to Nickelodeon.
C tier. A tragic monster.
We're sorry, Muckman. We're just not sure you really count as a mutanimal. This is fucking bullshit. You let Mona Lisa in. Rocka rocka. Pigeon Pete. We don't talk about Pigeon Pete. Chompy Picasso. Chompy is the second pet of the turtle family, and this time he's an alien turtle from outer space. Chompy feels kind of redundant, or Chompy makes Ice Cream Kitty feel kind of redundant. Neither of them really have a personality because they're not people, they're pretty strictly animals, but Chompy at the very least has actual story potential because he's an alien. Ice Cream Kitty is funnier, but Chompy has more of an actual reason to exist. Ice Cream Kitty is cuter, but Chompy has a stronger bond with Raph.
I really wanted to put Chompy in C tier with Ice Cream Kitty, but you just can't put both the pets in C tier. That's insane. And I guess Ice Cream Kitty came first, so I'm more attached to her, so sorry, Picasso, guess you get the D tier.
Moaning Lisa. That's not her actual name. Her actual name is impossible to pronounce, but Raph just calls her Mona Lisa. Why does she look like that? Why does her face look the way that it does? That's not what faces are supposed to look like. They're not supposed to have eyes on the sides of the head. That doesn't work like that. That's not what were they thinking? What were they thinking? Mona Lisa is a salamandrian warrior traveling the universe battling the Triceratons, and of course the turtles meet her in the space travel arc. Though we never see Salamandria, it's implied to be a war-torn planet. So naturally, when she first encountered the turtles, they were enemies. But she would soon realize that her and Raphael had a lot in common, and by a lot in common, I mean a mutual disdain for literally everything. Despite being two of the angriest people in the universe, her and Raphael have like the healthiest relationship. Mona's story ends with her deciding to stay on planet Earth and join the Mighty Mutanimals, opening lots of possibilities for so many new stories, and oh, that was the last season of the show. Frick.
C tier, her growth, redemption, and relationship with Raph were all really fun to see.
Fong. Fong is a member of the Purple Dragons, a group that's kind of just useless in general. But he's the least useless out of all of them. I feel like, gets the most attention, even though it doesn't really do a whole lot either. There was that one time with the ghost that wasn't really a ghost and they got like element powers. That doesn't really matter. We're not going to talk about that. The reason why I'm putting Fong on this tier list even at all is because they hint that he doesn't want to be a criminal, that maybe he was pressured into joining the Purple Dragons, but it's never really paid off. It doesn't go anywhere, and that's kind of disappointing. They had an opportunity to redeem one of the generic henchmen, but instead he just kind of remained a generic henchman.
E tier, missed opportunity.
Now, these next two I'm doing as one because they're a package deal: 80s Shredder and Krang. No one watches it for you, that's why we're 80s Shredder and Krang, not 80s Shredder and 80s Krang. The 80s applies to both of us. They look amazing. It's so weird, like, how are the 80s turtles so ugly, yet the 80s villains have such great designs? Shredder does look kind of like smoothed out and lacking detail, but that's like kind of the point. And I like how bright and colorful he looks. It really does set him apart from the main universe Shredder. And the way he moves is really good too. You can't really see it in still images, but he's very like exaggerated. And Kevin Michael Richardson does such a great job with the voice acting. Like, he's got range when he can do scary Shredder and funny Shredder really good. Krang 1 looks magnificent, and I don't know if it's just because I got tired of seeing like the sleek robots every episode, but like I kind of prefer the like sumo man baby look. Even though I really like 80s Shredder's voice, I actually really cannot stand 80s Krang's voice. Like, he constantly sounds like he's about to choke on his own tongue and die. And, like, it's gross, but not in a cool way.
C tier, I had a lot of fun with them.
Imagine taking this nasty ass thing and then turning it into a giant planet eating god. That's Toka. Toka is kind of like Space Godzilla, just without the cancerous tumors growing out of its back. Toka is also the mother of Chompy, and after the turtles brought him back to Earth, she would actually attack Earth trying to get him back. But after seeing Raphael caring for Chompy, she decides to let him stay on Earth, which I really like. It shows Toka as more of an actual sympathetic creature and not just a rampaging mindless monster.
Toka has a character technically, but is mostly a monster. So there, put her next to her son Chompy.
Savanti Romero. Okay, can someone please explain to me why his name is Savanti Romero? Because that's just like a guy's name. That's a normal dude name. So he's not a demon. I thought he was at first, but apparently he's not. I don't really know what he is. But he was mutated by his boss, Lord Simultaneous, and banished into the past. So yeah, he's a big time-traveling demon. He wants to exact revenge on his boss, and he's the arch enemy of Renette. He feels kinda generic. His whole motivation is just, I wanna conquer time, and I'm big and mean and scary. Similar to Renette, all the coolest parts about Savanti aren't really parts of himself. Like, I think the coolest part about him is that he teamed up with Dracula.
Eh, he's eh.
Hun, so here we are with yet another human villain. I'd say he's more of a Casey Jones rival as opposed to a Ninja Turtles villain. He's got this whole kind of like 70s Bruce Lee thing going on, which is a pretty neat homage, but he just doesn't really like do anything.
D tier, forgettable.
Miyamoto Usagi. Now this is an interesting case since he's technically not even a Ninja Turtles character. He first appeared in the Usagi Yojimbo comic series published by Dark Horse and written by Stan Sakai. He's even appeared in most show iterations of Ninja Turtles. Ignore the one on the top right, that one's from like a Netflix show or something. Now, I don't really know the lore, so I don't know how accurate this episode was to the original comic, but it's pretty much squarely about Usagi. The Ninja Turtles are there, but they're more just along for the ride. There's no long introduction or drawn out backstory, flashback, or anything. They just jump right into it, assuming you're already familiar with the world. The arc also takes place in an alternate dimension, meaning magic exists, so our tortoises and hare encounter quite a few mythological creatures along their journey. But what I really like about Usagi is that he's not just a fun guest character, but a really great protagonist in his own right. And finally, his design. Chef's fucking kiss. It's so perfect.
B tier, give him his own solo series and have a crossover episode with Cerebus the Aardvark.
Bigfoot. Yes, the actual Bigfoot. Hey, didn't the Krang say that they mutated monkeys and turned them into humans? That's the reason why they're the most advanced species on Earth? So that would also explain why there's never been a missing link. But then there is a missing link, which is Bigfoot. So, which is it? Did humans evolve or were they created by the Krang? Apparently, Bigfoot wasn't even supposed to exist. This episode was just actually, like, half baked. Originally, it would have been about ghost trick or treaters haunting the turtles, but there was already a lot of really, like, fucked up psycho shit happening in the farmhouse arc, and Nick didn't really want to go as far as actually killing children. Is there anything else I'm forgetting about Bigfoot? Nah, that's everything.
F tier, just why?
I am not going to include the finger on this tier list because I'd have to create an entire new category above S tier to capture his excellence. Alopex. So, Alopex is like the childhood friend of Tigerclaw, and just like him, she was taken by the Krang and then mutated, except instead of being a tiger, she was a fox. She blames Tigerclaw for their mutations, even cutting off his tail as revenge, and now decades later, she's back to finish the job. She also has like cursed magic blades that give people bad luck, and having magic is a nice change of pace, and it does help that they're not like crazy, overpowered, or unbelievable. It's kind of like a more subtle form of magic to where it could just not be real, but it also could be real at the same time. What I like most about Alopex is that she's not good or bad. She's not a Shredder minion or a Mutanimal. Her beef is with Tigerclaw and Tigerclaw only.
C tier, surprisingly memorable for a one off. Mondo Gecko. So Mondo Gecko is one of those really silly characters. Like they try to really channel the whole cowabunga dude vibe of the 80s cartoon. They even bring back Robbie Rist, the voice of the 90s movie Michelangelo, to voice him. The turtles are actually the ones responsible for him getting mutated, and it's refreshing to see a mutant that isn't some giant, evil, powerful psycho. It's also kind of messed up because his parents, like, immediately disowned him the moment he changed. He has a pretty good character arc in his solo episode, but I would rather if he stayed one off. They end up bringing him back later on. He becomes a member of the Mighty Mutanimals, but he's not very good at fighting, so he just gets beat up every episode. Like, it's kind of messed up how they build him up being really likable and really fun, and then they just turn him into a punching bag. He's like almost a worse punching bag than Pigeon Pete. At one point, we find out that Mondo Gecko actually met Muckman off screen, and the two like became really good friends together, which is really cute to see.
Look how they have massacred my boy!
Agent Bishop. Bishop is an Utrom, which is basically just a good Krang. I like the way that Bishop is introduced. He's one of those characters that's just relentlessly cool and just really badass all the time. He joins the Earth Protection Force to help battle against alien invasions, but of course they end up betraying him because they're the US military. It's teased that he and Krang Subprime were originally allies, but had to turn against each other because of the Krang-Utrom War.
D tier. I know that might seem kind of low, but I feel like he just doesn't really have the depth to warrant a C tier. The Utrom High Council. Now, as you know, Utrom is the species, while Krang are those who are being mind controlled by Krang Prime. So all the remaining Utroms who aren't under Krang's control formed a council. I like how the Krang aren't just a species of evil aliens that want to take over everything. There's an actual, like, lore-heavy backstory on why most of them are evil. Ninja Turtles does crossovers with itself a lot, but it's also consistently said that there's only one Dimension X, which would mean that there's only one Krang. So how can each version of the Ninja Turtles have their own Krang? Well, they try to actually explain that plot hole. Apparently, every version of Krang is a part of the same hive mind. They're all like clones of each other or something. I mean, it's kind of a flimsy excuse. The more you think about it, the more it starts to fall apart, but I admire the actual effort to at least try to explain something like that. This might be a little generous, but I'm putting the Utrom Council in B tier.
Metalhead. Metalhead is not a character, and I don't know why I put him on this list, but he was like a robot that Donnie built, and then it like malfunctioned and then turned evil, I think once or twice, and then it sacrificed itself to save them, and that was about it.
D tier. I don't really know what I was expecting.
Mira the Meerkat. So Mira's exclusive to the Mutant Apocalypse arc, which is debatably canon, but we're just not even gonna touch that. She's a scavenger in the wasteland looking for the oasis known as the Green Place. She meets up with Raph early on in the arc, and initially the two don't get along very well. They betray each other quite a lot. Well, usually she betrays him. But they bond over the fact that they've both lost their families, Raph having lost Mikey and Leo, and Mira losing her entire clan. At that point in the series, Raphael was ready to give up and let the desert consume him, but it was Mira's push to keep looking for the oasis that actually kept him going. I don't want to say anything else because Mutant Apocalypse is an amazing story, and even with spoilers, it's still worth a watch. I want to do a full video on Ninja Turtles continuity, and I will be discussing whether or not I think Mutant Apocalypse is canon. And you bet I will be talking about those ugly freaking 3D 80s turtles.
C tier. Very well written supporting character. Well, that seems like everyone. So here you are, the completed TMNT 2012. Wait a minute. No. I missed one. Of course. How could I forget? Krang Subprime! Who do you think it was? Megan Fox! Thank you, Mr. Breast! Your new Beast Burger is the perfect flashlight. I'm gonna be fucking this all day long. This shit makes better sex toy than food. And now we have the completed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012 character tier list ranked from worst to best. I've been hinting throughout this video that I have an idea for another Ninja Turtles related video. It will be one where I go through the entire canon to try and see which universes connect to which and, how the entire multiverse maps out. But I'm going to hold off on that for a while because something that big would require a lot of time and work and especially research. And of course, by research, I mean binging a bunch of cartoons. And for quick context, I started this video before school ended. So yeah, I want to take a break from these big hour-long things. Anyway, that's all the time I have today, so bye.